Sarah Shad Johnson has years of experience in education in Charleston County, having served as a Constituent School Board member for East Cooper. Now she wants to become the next Charleston County School Board member to represent East Cooper. I speak exclusively with Sarah for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Sarah Shad Johnson, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you, Quintin. Good to see you this morning. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Likewise. I know that you are a former chair of the Moultrie District 2 Constituent School Board, and I know a couple of weeks ago you announced that you are running for the District 2 school on the consolidated Charleston County School Board. And this newly created single-member district includes Arundel, McClellanville, the Isle of Palms, Sullivan's Island, and parts of Mount Pleasant from Park West, which I love, to the Old Village and other places I love. Right. Let me ask you this. Why Sarah Shad Johnson? Why again for the school board? Because I interviewed you a couple of years ago for your run for the school board.
Right. Well, Quintin, like you, I grew up here. I love Charleston. I raised my kids here. I got married here. My children went to CCSE schools, and I think that we live, in a wonderful, beautiful place, and our schools should be just as wonderful and beautiful for all children. And as you know, it's just not true. And so I've been on this education beat for 12 years, either through my advocacy group or on the Constituent Board, or like you said, running for school board in past years, because I'm passionate about serving in any way I can to help improve all of our schools. So this year is different because we're switching to single-member districts, and there's a reason why. It's a fresh start. It's a chance for communities to have authentic leadership, pick their own representatives that will represent them. And I feel like I have the experience to do that, to be a good representative. So here I am running.
Okay, and I want to get to that in just a second because that's still a developing news, as you know. But let me ask you, 12 years on the education beat, what is the biggest difference about education in Charleston County?
You mean the biggest difference that's happened in the last 12 years? Well, I mean, unfortunately, it's the same old thing we've seen. When I first started, it was a different administration, and while there were good things under that superintendent, the reason I started my education group is that every solution I saw coming to try to help our schools it was top down. It was not anything that teachers supported, that parents supported. It was some kind of shiny, brand new initiative. Let's try this. Let's try this. And unfortunately, who they tried it out on is our Title I schools that are struggling and need the most help. So that's why I started. And then in the last 7 years, it's even gotten worse because we have that same sort of idea that let's bring this in, let's pay all these consultants, let's do this, and it's sort of now it's turned into this sort of corporate education agenda. We've seen since Mission Critical through Reimagine, we've seen let's bring third-party operators in to run our Title I schools, and no one. I mean, if you probably saw just through the media that no one in our county, teachers, parents, people that are actually in our schools, we're interested in having third-party operators run our schools. We want our school district to support our schools and to give us the resources that we need. So, unfortunately, I haven't seen much positive change as far as a district and a board. Now, of course, in our schools, our teachers and principals and families, I mean, everyone's done the best they can through COVID, through everything else, and we see lots of wonderful things. I think a lot of people don't see the mess that's happening at the top.
Let me go right to it, Ms. Sarah. The Coalition for Kids, as you know, they're actually has endorsed that as candidates for the Charleston County School Board, and that's getting a lot of pushback reportedly from people in the community. I know that you spoke to the Post and Courier recently, and you said this quote to help. Well, you said this actually with your announcement recently. You said this: to help our students in the school district move forward in a positive direction, it is imperative that we elect board members who have the experience, knowledge, skill, and time to govern the school district with nearly 50,000 students, 87 schools, and a massive budget. So then, what should be the qualifying candidates and credentials, that is?
Well, it's weird this year because it used to be everyone would vote for the whole board. You know, you vote for 5. 2 years later, you vote for 4, and so you kind of get to choose. It would be nice to have someone in business. It'd be nice to have someone who maybe with some experience in education, law, things like that. Well, this year's different. You only get one vote, no matter where you live, and so what I'm offering, and I think is an important qualification, is obviously my experience. I mean, I was the chair of the District 2 Constituent Board for 4 years. That's a huge time commitment. We met more days and for more hours than the county board when I was on the board. So constituent board experience, and there are a few people running that do have constituent board experience. That I think is crucial. Sometimes I think you should have to serve on the constituent board before you run for the county board, because you're on the ground rezoning schools. You're doing the expulsion cases. I mean, these are very personal, close to the ground, right there with parents, students, and principals. And it's a lot of hard work, and it is very rewarding because you're helping. But so I think that experience is huge. So whether it's experience as an educator, experience as someone who served on a constituent board, I think those are important. I also have experience just in general with law, finance, and policy, just through my prior work experience in education. I was a bankruptcy paralegal. So, you don't have to have children that went through the school to be on the school board, but I think that's very important, because I think it shows you were invested and you sent your children there, and then you have that experience. Because I certainly, my kids had great experiences, but they also had things not so great. And so it's important, I think, that for a qualified person to have been in our schools as a parent, as a leader, and in my case, as an elected official.
Well, these are two side questions that I just thought about. So, in your district right now, the current district that you want to represent on the school board, how many schools have actually been rezoned?
Well, so, the single member district doesn't follow any school zones, so it's really weird. All of Constituent District 1 is in my district, and then part of Constituent District 2. But actually, in the single member District 2, I have families and students in every single school east of the Cooper. So you kind of have to look at it as a big, all of the schools East Cooper, which is 16 schools in one program school. So looking at it that way, we have rezoned, Lucy Beckham High School, Carolina Park Elementary, Moultrie Middle School. I've done those personally myself. It's very hard work. We took a year for each one to do it, and then we announced a year early because it's a really big deal. So rezoning, compared to all the other parts of town, it's almost a yearly thing over here, just because our population has grown and grown and grown so much, particularly in Mount Pleasant. So yeah, that's a big part of the constituent board's job.
And what other schools in the future do you see actually being rezoned in your district?
Well, so Lucy Beckham High School, which opened in 2020, is already at capacity, or it's going to be at capacity, and they put trailers out there. And there are a lot of reasons for that. There were some the district came up short on some of the numbers, and then we have, we had a moratorium on student transfers into that school, and the county board just kind of ignored that. So we have a lot of issues with overcrowding. And so that sometime down the road, there may be a little bit more rezoning there. That's something the constituent board will do, not the county board. There's very good news just recently about Carolina Park Elementary. That school opened in 2017, has already been rezoned once, because that is in the north side of our of Constituent District 2, and so it's growing 100 students per year. So the good news is they thought they were going to get rezoned, and now we see a glimmer of hope, because the constituent board, when I was chair, we fought for this, and then now I'm not on that board anymore, but the members of that board have continued, and community members have continued to press for expansion of Carolina Park Elementary, which in the last referendum, the voters voted for that. So we've kind of been sitting around waiting, and it's been unfunded. And so now finally, CCSD's Audit and Finance Committee has said, we found some money and we plan to give a partial expansion. So it's not the full 300 student, but it's about half of that. That's not final. It will still have to go to the county board to be finalized. So if that happens, and I'll support that, then that school will not have to be rezoned, in the next few years. So after that rezoning, then we also have a future middle high school in the Allendale area, which I've worked on for several years. When I went after Lincoln closed in 2016, we went right to work on planning that, and so that will not. The earliest that could open is 4 years or later, and we don't right now have the students to go there. We don't, and so we're playing with some different ideas. Maybe a partial magnet can pull more students in. So that will be a rezoning project for the constituent boards, both of them, District 1, District 2, to work on later. But as far as me being if I'm elected to the county board, what I will work on is the Blue Ribbon Committee that helps plan. Well, what kind of partial magnet will work? What does the community want? Things like that. So, and then, Mount Pleasant Academy, and no one wants to be named when we start talking about rezoning. So Mount Pleasant Academy, they have been at and a little bit over capacity for a while. So as long as they kind of stay right there, I think they're sort of just on the watch list. I'll just say that.
So how many students are actually going to that particular academy each year?
To Mount Pleasant Academy,
Yes, ma'am.
Their capacity is, I believe, at 500, and so they're over that. But the principal, Miss Jackson, I think she feels good about it. That it doesn't need to be rezoned right now, and we just kind of keep an eye on it. And she does well with what she has, and people love going to that school. So I think they're okay for now. We just kind of watch it, and we'll watch transfer. One thing the Constituent Board can do and has done is they've just put a moratorium and said Mount Pleasant Academy, and also the same was with Carolina Park Elementary. We're not allowing student transfers in because there's no space.
Right.
And so as long as the county board follows that, which that's a constituent board jurisdiction, and they have not worked with us in the past. So that's another thing. When I'm in the county board, I want to work to mend that relationship, not just with the District 2 constituent board, but the District 1 and actually all constituent boards. They've all had problems having their voice heard by the county board, and that's what they're there for. They're there to bring the community voice to the county board, and so that's something I definitely can work to change because I've been there.
Going back to Allendale and McClellanville, Miss Sarah, with that magnet partial idea, that is, my tongue is twisted this morning. But how many students could actually go to that particular school under that particular umbrella, for lack of a better word?
Well, so CCSD has kind of come up with this formula. I'm not sure I agree with it all the time, but that a school has to have at least 500 students, because if it doesn't, you can't get the programming, things like that. Well, we have rural schools, whether it's down towards Edisto or out my way towards Allendale. And, St. James Santee only has, a little more than 200 students there. Well, they're just more expensive to run. And I think everyone just needs to accept that. We're a huge school district geographically. We have rural areas, and rural area schools are more expensive just because they're further out and they don't have as many students. So, but that said, the school district, they have said this is going to be a middle/high school, and they want 500 in the middle school and 500 in the high school. It's one building. And they have already done the design for it. And I was involved with, when we were looking at that. But, so right now, there are not enough students in District 1 to come close to filling that school. And so the original plan in 2016 was that they were, okay, this is a joint school. And so we're going to zone students in District 2 there. And that's why, for almost 2 years, my board in District 2 was meeting jointly with the District 1 board, and we had committee meetings and board meetings trying to figure that out. And so every time we look at the numbers, we just built Lucy Beckham High School, so Wando is actually under capacity now. So we don't have, in D2, we don't have an over and even though Beckham is overcrowded, generally speaking, when you look at District 2, we're not overcrowded in high schools. So that's where the partial magnet idea comes in, is to pull people, and really you could be anywhere in Charleston County. Once you have a magnet like that, you can make it constituent, but you can also make it where anyone can do. So, if we come up with a really creative, out of the box magnet that something that's not offered at all in our district, I mean, that could pull in more students. But at one point, it was, if they really wanted 1,000 students out there, it was going to be something like 500-600 from Mount Pleasant, and we don't have that need now. So it's something that it's going to take a great deal of planning, community input first. That has to come first, and to see what kind of school do we want, what kind of magnet would people be interested in.
So, okay, you talk about obviously Lucy Beckham High School being overcrowded right now, and Wando having less than this capacity. How many students are currently at Wando?
It's under 3,000. I think it's because every year when Lucy Beckham opened it, we didn't just they added a grade every year. So this year they added the 12th grade. So this is the first year Lucy Beckham will have a graduating class. So it's sort of been this process. So the numbers have to adjust the numbers each year, but it's somewhere, I think it's somewhere around 2,500 or less at Wando. Wando was built for 3,000 when it built, and then CCSD, not criticizing them, maybe they just kind of get creative, but then suddenly the Wando at capacity was 3,200 or 3,400. So still, no matter what, I mean, there's room at Wando. The good news is my daughter was there, and she graduated in 2019, and all 4 years that she was at Wando, the population was at 4,000. It wasn't like we had a couple of trailers. We had an entire village of trailers, like 30. And that got to be a problem with discipline, with safety, things that I experienced, not just as a parent, but as a constituent board member. So they're now not using those trailers. Everyone's inside the building. So that Wando did need that room to breathe. And also Wando being on the end of our constituent district, any growth that comes in, and that's where I live, and the growth is every day, the students will go there to Wando. And if we do get more transfers from out of county, I think it makes sense to allow them to go to Wando versus Beckham, which is overcrowded.
So how many transfers have you gotten so far for Wando?
Well, I haven't. So my term ended in 2020 on the Constituent Board, but we used to get, on average, we would get like 350 transfer requests per year into District 2, which some of those are people within District 2. They just say if you're zoned for one elementary school and you need to go to another one because your parent worked there, something like that. But so then the other half is people from outside of District 2, whether it was District 1 or really, downtown, West Ashley, North Charleston, there's a lot of transfer. So I don't have the exact number of how many requests into Wando, but it was, kind of equally divided between schools. We would often get a lot of transfer requests from downtown, the people that wanted to go to Wando, and now they want to go to Lucy Beckham.
So before the overcrowding, how many transfers did you all get for Lucy Beckham?
So when we rezoned, all right, Lucy Beckham opened in 2020, and we knew that school, that it was close. It was going to be this new school. It's smaller, and there's some unknowns. Like, we didn't know how many people from charter schools and even private schools are going to come back, and a lot did, because it was new. They have a great principal, Anna Dassing, and so we knew that. So from the start, we said the first 2 years of Lucy Beckham High School, there will be no student transfers at all, with exception of if the teacher worked at that very school. That just made sense that their child go there. And I think there were just maybe 3. And then also, if there's some sort of extreme medical hardship, those were the 2 exceptions. Anything else, I just want to go to Lucy Beckham. It was a no, and it was stated up front. It was on the CCSD website, and that is a decision of the Constituent Board, and that was our jurisdiction, and it was not followed by the county board. Instead, there were, I'd say in the last 3 years, or in the last 2 years, since Lucy Beckham has been open, there's been at least 100 transfer requests, and those all were overridden by the county board. So that's that goes back to the problem with the county board and the Constituent Board and the poor relationship. So yeah.
And Sarah, let me go to let me stay with Lucy Beckham for a second. Obviously, it's overcrowded now, and they have the trailers. Right. And I know you mentioned that with the trailers at Wando, they have some issues with safety and discipline. Are you having those same issues over at Lucy Beckham with the trailers?
No, not yet. I haven't. And I'm not, on the Constituent Board now, but I have not heard of any problems. They like to call it cottages. They don't like to say trailers, but it's what was going at Wando. I mean, there were so many trailers, and it was years and years of that, and they were not that close to the building, so students literally, throwing books and having physical discipline issues. Someone would have to come. You have a radio, and someone would come in a golf cart to handle it, and that took time. And so that's part of the problem with this. Plus when the weather was bad, all those kids had to come inside. Right. So I haven't heard anything like that at Lucy Beckham yet. I think they're very close to the building, and they're new. So and they're not that many of them. So I haven't heard any problems yet with that.
So how many discipline cases are there at Wando and versus how many discipline cases at Lucy Beckham?
Well, when I was on the board, so my term ended 2020, and that's when Lucy Beckham opened. So it's probably, and also Wando has a lot more kids. This year Lucy Beckham is a full school. This year, they added 12th grade this year. But I would say percentage-wise, it's equivalent.
And Sarah, I unfortunately have to go to the next interview. Unfortunately, but not unfortunately. I love doing interviews. But let me ask you this: you talked about the little bit of money that the Charleston County School District actually found for Lucy Beckham. How much money was that exactly?
You mean for Carolina Park or for which?
For Lucy Beckham. I'm sorry.
To build it or for the trailers?
Oh, for the trailers, and I know obviously it's and then for Carolina Park as well.
Yeah, I mean, so for Carolina Park, that's news to us. As in yesterday, where did they scrap this money together? So that's going to be revealed, I think, at the Constituent Board meeting tonight, which I will be there to find out where did this money come from. Is there more? Because voters voted for a 300 expansion, not 150. But we'll see what that is. For the Lucy Beckham trailers, I don't. It would have to come out of the capital projects bucket somewhere, and so they didn't have a choice. I mean, I think the school is well over capacity. So unfortunately, that's what they had to do is add those trailers. Hopefully, it will be temporary, or definitely, hopefully, they won't add any more.
So, with that capital projects budget, what is that currently?
You mean that? That's an interesting thing, because the capital. One of my things I'm running on is that we need a better comprehensive plan, and it always used to be that after a referendum, and when we have this list, these are the schools that we're going to build or improve, add, expand, and those. Mr. Reggie McNeil, when he was in charge of that, he had like a 99% rate of getting it done. Everything was done and done on time. And so that hasn't been true in the last few years. And I'm wondering, that's one thing I want to do when I get onto the board is, well, what happened? Why are there so many of these projects that when they came to voters and they said, listen, this is the number one project in your district. It's highlighted in red. That was the Carolina Park expansion. And then we voted for it. And then what happened? It went to the very bottom of the list, unfunded. And I hate to, pitch one school against the other or one district against the other, but something happened there, and it wasn't anything to do with, the growth in Mount Pleasant stopping. So I think that's something that we need to take a look at. Why has this particular project not it just doesn't really make sense? And the same, it goes in West Ashley area. What's the plan for West Ashley? Because it's very confusing. Why did they merge the two middle schools when they wouldn't fit in C.E. Williams? That was a terrible thing. That was a part of Mission Critical. Right. And so I think when I get on this board, that's one thing I want to do is there has to be a comprehensive plan for each area. West Ashley they've needed one for quite a while, for middle school. And for East Cooper too, what's the plan for all this growth? And then I'm sure North Charleston, everyone just needs a comprehensive plan, and then we need to stick to it. And I just feel like that has not been done over the last few years.
Quickly, I have 1 minute left, but let me ask you, when was Carolina Park at the top of the list, and when did it go to the bottom of the list?
It was at the top of the list before the referendum that we voted on, when they were making the list. CCSD went around to the different constituent boards. They had public meetings talking about these are your issues, and whether it's a new roof or a new school or expansion. What we were told and what was highlighted in red, it was Carolina Park, and we knew it because we saw the growth, 100 kids a year, and so that was. And then after we voted on the referendum. So really, in the last couple of years, it just suddenly went down to the bottom as not funded. And we never. And I was on the constituent board, in 2020 when we were still kind of asking about that, and then after I, still stay in touch. And we just never really got a good answer. It's kind of like there's enough room they can go back to these other schools, but it's very bad practice to rezone the same families back and forth, no matter which part of the district you live in. So it's just not good, a good plan.
So how much is Carolina Park underfunded right now?
So that, when it was on the referendum and approved, it was, I believe, a $10 million project to expand it by 300. And now, since time has passed, it's now 12 to 15 million. Wow. If they do the full expansion, but we hear they're just going to do the half one for now, which, if they can commit to that, and then maybe the half later, because that is the part of town that is growing the fastest.
Wow. Man, I have so much questions for you. Coalition for Kids, obviously the changes on the school board as far as policies and how many policies they want to get to the board and superintendent. But if you're elected, I would love to get you back on Quintin so we can talk about all of this.
Oh yeah, that'll be great.
Well, Sarah Shad Johnson, thank you for your time, and again, welcome back to Quintin Spokes Ups.
Thank you so much, Quintin. It was great to see you.
Likewise.